Good morning, boys and girls. I hope you had a nice time on the playground and that you are looking forward to your first music theory of the first term. Okay, but no, all jokes apart, I'm looking forward to working with you again this term. Unfortunately, it will still be indirectly. Hopefully next year things will be back to normal, but of course then hopefully I won't be seeing any of you again. I'm going to start this term with a new topic, just again to start in a fresh way. I will again go in quite a roundabout way to come to the point, as I've said quite a few times before, while I was still seeing you face to face. You will learn much more than just music theory in this class. So please don't get bored or annoyed if I do this detour. I think I'm trying to make it informative and interesting. So I hope you don't mind that. Right, so here's the first part of the first lecture. Students that have been in my teaching method classes might still find some of the things familiar that I said. Right, I want to start off by asking you, which city in the world do you think is the most romantic city? Oh, okay, right, you say Paris. Not a bad call. London, yes, perhaps. There's another city which I won't tell the name yet. Paris and London were both still hovels up to the 19th century. Paris was only renewed by the urban planner Valentin Haussmann. That's the French pronunciation of Haussmann. He must have been from Alsace. He's the chap that had acres of decrepit buildings in the center of Paris demolished, and then came with the outlay that we still know today, with the Arc de Triomphe in the middle, like at the hub of a wheel, and then the various avenues emanating from this hub, like the spokes of a wheel. Champs-Élysées is one of them. Just another interesting fact, this Haussmann in German, the most famous boulevard in Paris is also named after him. That's the boulevard in which you find all the fancy boutiques and expensive shops like Galeries Lafayette and Printemps. Okay. London, again, was also, as I said, up to the 19th century a hovel. You know that most cities didn't have any sewerage system. So what did people do to get rid of sewerage? Well, they simply threw their chamber pots, with all the accumulated, whatever you want to call it, out of the windows. And in the middle of all the alleyways and streets, they would have a small channel, and the sewerage simply had to find their way to the nearest river or tributary of the river. In fact, the Thames, the river running through London, became so noxious, in other words, stank so much, that the people in the Houses of Parliament, the Houses of Parliament, Westminster, are situated next to the river, they had to put up curtains saturated in chloroform and other chemicals in the 19th century to enable the members of Parliament to meet there, because the stench was so obnoxious that they couldn't even breathe properly. Okay. The most wonderful city, even today, and certainly in previous centuries, was Venice. Now, here again, some interesting facts and a lot of things around the subject, which I will slowly draw closer to the theme of my lecture, are the following. Venice, up to the 16th century, was the strongest military and political power in the world. We don't realize that. It was only a city-state. In other words, the city itself was also the state. But it became extremely powerful in a military sense, but also from a political and economical sense. The reason for this power was the fact that Venice was a hub of the commerce between the East and the West. Another interesting fact, you know that up to the beginning of the 16th century, the only addition to food that Western people knew, Europeans knew, was salt. Salt could either be acquired through evaporation with the seas, or what they did, they found lots of deposits of salts subterranean. What was Mozart's birth city, and still the city with which he is associated? Salzburg, which means salt fortress. Underneath Salzburg were massive deposits of salt, which were then mined. But otherwise, the Europeans didn't know any other kind of additive to food. Now, one way to camouflage the taste of spoiled food, because remember they didn't have fridges and stuff like that in the 16th century and earlier, was to try to put some stuff into the food. And that's where the spices and herbs of the East came in. The herbs and spices of the East, like coriander, pepper, nutmeg, cloves, etc., were much sought after in Europe, because that was one way to flavor the food, to give it some piquancy, but also to, as I say, camouflage the taste of food going off already. And massive profits could be made in such a way. For example, let's say a quantity of pepper that would cost 1 penny when you bought it in the East would fetch £1 or £10 or even £100 in the West. So the profits were literally massive, like 1,000% or 10,000%. Right. So that was why Venice became such an important hub. Another result of their military and political and economical power was that they conquered a lot of other nations and islands. You know, most of the islands in the Mediterranean belonged to them. What they of course always did, you know, what always happens in any military conquest, they take spoils, they take booty. So Venice was filled with a lot of statues and obelisks and other treasures, art treasures, which were looted from the places that they conquered. So apart from the morality or not of this, it made Venice a very attractive city from the point of sight for the things that you can see there. Okay, I'm going to call halt here because there's some disturbance under the table, which is Cornelius' fault. So just hang on a bit. Take 5.